Hello, hello. My name is April Malone with Yes, I Work From Home, and this is a podcast. Today I have Todd Paulsmeyer with us. He is from Colorado, Denver, Colorado, not too far from Arizona, I guess. Todd, go ahead and tell us about your new venture selling fingernail clippers.
Yes. So I left a very, very long career in software development. And the thing that I got into is I created the world's safest nail clippers for whenever you trim somebody else's nails, like your little infant or baby or toddler or young child. Or if you're a caregiver and you've got a senior citizen or somebody who's disabled and you go to trim their nails, you can use these clippers because they're super, super safe. And the reason that nail clipping is so scary is that when you're trimming somebody else's nails and you squeeze that handle, you don't know if you're about to cut their skin because you can't feel what they're feeling. So
yeah, I've done it. I've totally chopped and made my kids bleed before when they're so tiny, especially like literally newborns. And when babies are born, they come out with fingernails, like fingernails that need to be trimmed immediately. And I think I made our first kid bleed. And then ever since then, my husband has always done the nail clipping. So did you leave your software development job to do this, or did you just transition for other reasons?
So I did stop doing software development in order to bring this product to the world.
Wow.
And I have a story behind how I got there, if you want to hear that.
Please, let's hear it.
All right. So I was in software development for about 30 years, and I had been really successful at it. And the software business is a lot of feast and famine. And when you get in big projects, there's a lot of stress and a lot of time. And I had been doing that for a lot of years. So I was feeling a bit burned out. And unexpectedly, both of my parents died in a car crash. And that was really, thanks. It was really, really traumatic. And it happened about 5 years ago. And I had to really forced me to re-examine my life. And parents were young and active, and they hadn't talked to my brother and I about end of life for them, because they told us just about a few months before they died, actually, that we kind of brought up the end of life topic to them when we were all together, and they said, "Oh, we're good, awesome health. We plan on living another 15 or 20 years. Let's wait a little while before we have that discussion." And then a few months later, they both died at the same time in a car accident, right after I saw them with their grandkids. So that event helped me to really look at and examine my own life. What am I doing? The other thing that it did was, since they went a little before their time and they had their finances in order, my brother and I got a chunk of change. And because I had 2 kids, and at that point I was divorced and had a big payment going to my ex-wife, the amount of money my parents left me was definitely not enough to retire on.
Okay.
But it was enough that I could go, okay, I can take a break from this grueling software development work, spend some time grieving, and re-examine my life and go, okay, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
So what I ended up coming up with was I could go back into software, I could go back into that, or I could bring a dream to life. So I went with the dream.
So you'd already developed the clipper at that point?
That's the next story.
Keep going.
Okay. All right. So because I was working at home, the topic of this wonderful podcast. So because I was working at home, I got to be there as my kids were growing up. So my first was born, and each day I got to be there as he was developing day by day. And as you know, with kids, it's just so amazing and mind-blowing to think that there's this new life here. And yes, they don't just come out with nails. they come out with razors on the tips of their fingers.
It's true.
because their nails are paper thin, and paper gives paper cuts. It's sharp. It's just like razors. And so my little one was scratching mom's breast while she was nursing, and she really didn't like that. She's like, get us some clippers. So we got little baby nail clippers. Those little teeny tiny things that are like real small, and they're for babies, right? Well, she used them, and I heard this screaming from my kiddo and this loud exclamations from mom, and I ran in, and she was like holding that little finger, and I saw blood on the tip of the finger, and my kiddo was crying.
Oh.
And what happened was my kiddo cried for 2 whole minutes, but mom cried for 2 hours. She felt so awful. And so me being a guy, I was like, oh, what's so hard about trimming nails? Oh, you just made a mistake. And she looked at me and said, well, then next time you're trimming the nails. Okay, I'll do it. Be happy to. So a week goes by, and the next thing I know, she hands me the baby, and she hands me the nail clippers. So I swaddle the kid up with one arm sticking out, and I sit down in the rocking chair in the sunshine, and I take those little nail clippers, and I grab that little tiny finger, and I hold the nail clippers up to that finger, and I go, oh my explicative, like I was just like aghast when I realized the jaws of those nail clippers, if I just squeeze the handle, would take off about half of my kid's fingertip.
Because they're open so wide?
Because they're open so wide. Now, what's wide on the aperture, the amount they're open on an adult is not that big compared to an adult finger. And when you're trimming your own nails, as you squeeze that handle, you can tell if you're going to hurt yourself, and so you stop. But when you're trimming somebody else's nails, you can't feel that. And with a little kiddo, you have to get those jaws closed past all of the skin and only clip that teeny tiny thin nail. So I knew I was in trouble, but I did my best. And I probably muddled through for about a month without hurting my little one. But then, you know, the more you do it, it takes so long to be so careful. Eventually, I squeezed the handle, and the moment I squeezed the handle, my little one flinched, and I caught skin, and I drew blood, and I felt so awful. So I went, never again. So instead of clipping it during the daytime, I put on a red headlamp, and I went in at night. So my kiddo got nursed to sleep. I'd crawl into bed, I'd put on the red headlamp, I'd grab that little tiny finger while my kiddo was sleeping, and very carefully, without trying to wake it up, I'd trim the nails. And that worked for a while. But then eventually I learned kids flinch in their sleep when they're dreaming.
Oh dear.
So again, I drew blood. Now this time, mom had worked very hard to get the kiddo to sleep. It was hard to get the kiddo to sleep.
Oh, no.
And oh my God, was she pissed at me when I cut that nail again. And she woke up and she grumbled at me as it took her another 2 hours to get the kiddo back to sleep.
Yep.
Like between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. when she wanted to be sleeping.
Yep.
And I felt horrible. And then I went, okay, absolutely never again. So working at home, I went into the garage. First, I searched all over the internet to try to find something that I knew would work. I could not find a nail product that I knew would be super effective and work really well.
And what year was this about?
This was about 2004.
Okay.
In 2004. So
I think your kids are just a little older than mine.
Yes. This oldest, whose fingertips I heard is now 19.
Okay.
So I studied the problem. I went, oh, I'm cutting, the jaws are so wide, I'm able to cut the skin. And I looked all around for a product that I thought could do the job better. I could not find anything. I went out to the stores. I looked at all the different baby nail clippers. I looked at all the nail products for kids, and nothing I thought would do the job. So because I'm in software and I have an engineering mind, I'm always in the how do you fix it mode. How do you fix information management? That extends into the rest of the world. I got duct tape and I'm able to fix things all the time. So I took these nail clippers and I went, okay, how do I fix this? How do I make this work better? So after a few tries in the garage, I came up with my first prototype. And the first prototype allowed me to reduce the blade gap small enough so that the only thing that would go between the blades is the nail. And when the only thing that fits between the blades is the nail, when you squeeze the handle, you're only going to cut the nail. The other thing that does is when the blade gap is that small, you can literally put the blades right up against the fingertip and squeeze, and there's simply not enough room for skin to get between the blades because the blade gap is so small. And the thickness of your skin is proportional to the thickness of your nail. So super, super small kids have super, super tiny nails. Their skin is very thin, but if that aperture only allows their nail in, then it's still small enough that it's not going to allow the skin in.
All right, I'm going to sit here looking at my fingers now while we're talking. How do you account for the curvature of the fingernails?
That's an awesome question. So there's actually two curves on a fingernail. So if you look down at your fingertips are round at the tip. That's one curve. So if you're looking down at your hand, put your hand flat on the table and then look down at it, you'll see that the fingertips are curved and the nails are curved. The other way you have a curve is if you point your finger straight at you and look at your fingers straight at you, you'll see there's a curve of the nail bed. The nail bed makes a curve, kind of like a roof over your fingertip. So those are the two curves. So when the aperture of the nail clipper is super, super small, it only allows the nail in, you can't just put the nail clipper straight up to the nail because of that curve. So what I did was I designed, and I got help from my brother on this. My brother had a kiddo a few years after mine. And so I gave him the prototype and I said, test it out and help me figure out how to make this better. And so he told me it's difficult to get the nail in there. If there was some way you could slide it in from the side easier, that would work. So I came up with rounding each side of the blades. So usually the blades have a perfect right angle on each side of the nail clipper.
Okay.
So the blades are flat. The cutting surface is perfectly flat and straight. And then on the edge, it's a perfect right angle. That makes a right angle point. And what I did was I grind those down with a special grinder, and I create two rounded edges, which makes, when you're looking at it, it makes what looks like a funnel. So it's wide on each edge, and then it funnels the nail between the cutting blades. That allows you to slide the nail clippers onto the nail from the side, and you can do it from either side. And then once the nail is between the blades, you clip, and then you slide it a little farther. Clip again, slide a little farther, and clip again. And as you're sliding, you're rotating the clipper to follow the arc of the nail.
I think this would be a good time to invite you to hold it up to the camera for those of us that are watching on the video.
So for those of you that you can see, the way I'm holding it right now, you can just see right here, the nail clippers have blades that have angles on either side.
I can see it.
Can you see it?
Yeah, it's focusing now.
Great. So that allows you to slide the nail between the blades. Now, for those of you who can see it, you'll see that there's a heart on the dial. And the heart is there because I call these LuvClips.
It's almost like they're sitting on a pedestal.
Yes, so that pedestal is what I call the micro precision adjustment dial. And the dial starts at 0. And at 0, the blades are closed. And when you turn the dial, there's 10 numbers on there from 0 to 9. And when you turn the dial from 0 to 1, the blades open to about the same thickness as copy paper.
That's the newborn baby.
That's the newborn baby size. That's about the same. That's about 1/10 of 1 millimeter. That's about this. That's about the thickness of a newborn's nails.
And I was interrupting you right when you were trying to say the product name. So
sure. So the product name is LuvClip, and love is spelled LUV. So LUVCLIP, LuvClip. They're at LuvClip.com. They're also selling on Amazon right now. And they're on Amazon, they're the highest rated nail clipper for reviews. They have lots of glowing 5-star reviews.
Are they new?
They work so well.
Like, are they just on the market now?
They've been on Amazon for a few weeks.
Okay.
And I've been slowly getting the main website going for sales, and under the advice of a business coach, jumped over to Amazon and made sure I got them up there also.
Can you talk about your transition from being a software developer to now having a physical product that you're selling? Because that's a pretty big leap, going from developing to sales.
It's been a huge one. And it's challenged me to look at myself and examine